I'm so glad you found me. I was just hanging out in my kid's shower, just thinking about plant transport and how awesome plants are. I thought this would be a great time and a great place to review some of the things we learned this week. So let's start talking about how plants make the gases that they make. So we talked this week about photosynthesis. Now let's write out the formula for photosynthesis. So remember, photosynthesis is carbon dioxide brought in from the air plus H2O liquid, which is brought in from the ground, plus the sun's energy, so light from the sun's energy, and this produces glucose, C6H12O6, plus oxygen. Here's our formula for photosynthesis. If you can't quite see it, sorry. You're just going to have to look it up or just trust me that that's what the formula is. We can also balance this formula. So we're going to have 6 carbon dioxides, 6 H2O molecules, and 6 water molecules. Now, plants bring in this carbon dioxide via their leaves. You guys remember what that special opening is in the leaf? Remember, that's called the stomata. Now, most of the stomata are on the underside of the leaf, and that helps the leaf to prevent things like gas loss and water loss. So stomata are the small openings within the leaf, and then the guard cells are what allow the stomata to open and close. Opening when it needs to get gases in or out, closing to prevent it from drying up. Remember those stomata? That's where the gas exchange occurs. So we'll put our little leaf on our tree here. So carbon dioxide comes in via the stomata, and then it heads to the special cells that allow for photosynthesis to take place. And those cells, of course, are chloroplasts. And chloroplasts are only found in plants. They're not found in animals. And chloroplast is the site where photosynthesis takes place. And plants can photosynthesize and produce their own food, and then we benefit from that food. So the whole process of photosynthesis is so amazing. You guys will get to learn way more about that in Bio 20. It's one of my favorite things to teach in Bio 20. So the carbon dioxide comes in, mixes with H2O, and how that H2O gets there we'll talk about in a sec, and light energy, and then glucose is produced. And then also oxygen. Once oxygen is produced, the plant can either use that oxygen or any excess oxygen it has, that oxygen can leave again via those stomata. So now we've got glucose that's been produced up in our leaves, and the leaves need that glucose. They undergo cellular respiration and they use that glucose to make energy so the rest of the plant can do its daily functions. But the rest of the tree needs glucose as well, right? The bark is continuing to be made, all of that heartwood inside of the tree is going to need to grow, the roots are constantly growing, so that glucose is needed for the leaves and for the rest of the tree, so the rest of the tree can undergo cellular respiration and produce that energy to continue its daily functions. So glucose is moved to the rest of the plant via these special tubes called phloem. So if we think phloem, flow down. So phloem carries the glucose and it moves it down to the rest of the plant. So this glucose can go to all over the leaves and then into the trunk and then down into the roots as well, once that glucose is made. All right, and then oxygen, like we talked about, leaves via the leaf. Now we know carbon dioxide comes in via the leaf, but what about this water? How does the plant actually get water? And this is the trickier part. So the plant, of course, is sitting in dirt, and inside the dirt is lots of water and, of course, lots of minerals. Now, we talked a little bit about how these roots have tiny little root hairs on them. And remember how important surface area is. Again, you guys will be talking lots about surface area in every biology course that you take. The more surface area, the more efficient something is. So these root hairs, there's lots of root hairs on the plant, and the root hairs allow the plant to bring in lots of minerals as well. So we're actually just going to erase these root hairs here. Oh, look at this. Just got one of my kids' cloths right here. And we'll just pretend that this is like one big root hair. So minerals need to get into the plant as well. So if we've got minerals in the soil, these minerals are actually brought into the plant. Now they've got to move against their concentration gradient from a low concentration gradient to a high concentration gradient. So they must move into the plant via, you got it, active transport. So these minerals are going to move into the plant via active transport. And we're going to see this mineral buildup inside the root hairs and the roots of this tree. All right, so we now have this active transport, this movement of the root hairs into the tree. Now, the reason I say that it's active transport is there's minerals outside of here, but also you have to remember the plant's got glucose and minerals and ions, a lot of those things inside of it. So it does have to move in via active transport. Once all these minerals are in here and building up, along with all the glucose that's moved down here, now the water can move into the plant via osmosis. Now remember that water moves from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration. So that water is going to move via osmosis into the plant. So there's our water moving in. So the water is going to move into the hypertonic solution. Right, water moves into the hypertonic solution, and now we've got water nicely building up inside the plant. Now that water is needed not only in the roots, but in the rest of the plant as well. So to get that water to the rest of the plant, we have these special vessels called xylem. And xylem are hollow vessels. They're kind of like drinking straws. So if you can imagine yourself sitting outside on a nice summer day, drinking a nice cold glass of lemonade or iced tea, whatever floats your boat. It's like a straw. When you suck through a straw, that's how water moves up these xylem vessels. So as water is building up and building up down here in the bottom of the tree, it literally is pushing itself up the xylem vessels. Now, it does this, if you think about a straw again, water is attracted to the sides of the straw, and that is called adhesion. When water is attracted to another thing, adhesion, or it can be also attracted to itself, which is called cohesion. So if we think about our xylem vessel here, water is going to move up, it's going to be attracted to the sides of the straw or the side of the xylem, but it's also going to be attracted to itself, and it's going to start moving up that tree. So that only gets water so far. Oh, I'm losing my props here. So that only gets water so far. To get water the rest of the way up, the plant undergoes a process every single day called transpiration. So if we have this beautiful sun outshining, as the sun is shining, it's literally pulling water out of the leaves. So this is kind of like evaporation, but when it happens in a plant, we call it transpiration. So water is coming out of our stomata and out into the atmosphere. And if you guys have ever heard of those cloud forests in the jungle, those cloud forests are... Can you wait a second, please, Rudy? Those cloud forests are created by transpiration in the jungle. So as this H2O is leaving, it's basically kind of leaving gaps in the top of the tree. So as water is leaving, there's room for more water to be sucked up. So water is being sucked up into the top of this plant, and then that water can also leave via transpiration. So this happens when the sun's out and that water is basically evaporating from the plant. The last things you guys learned about this week were phototropism and gravitropism. So phototropism is when our plant grows towards the sun. So lots of times plants are going to bend or grow right towards the sun, and of course they want as much surface area of their leaves as possible right in that sunlight. So the sun can give them all of that sunlight energy to join carbon dioxide and water together to make our glucose and our oxygen for cellular respiration. So phototropism is when a plant grows towards the sun, and of course plants want to do that. You guys also heard of gravitropism, and gravitropism is when a plant grows with or against the force of gravity. Of course, when a plant is growing, its roots are growing down, and we know that gravity is pushing down as well. So the roots undergo what we call positive gravitropism. So our roots allow for positive gravitropism as those roots grow down in the same direction as gravity, and the shoot system of a plant grows up, which is against the force of gravity, and that's negative gravitropism. So if you guys ever went canoeing or walking along the river after the floods that happened in Calgary, oftentimes you guys would see trees that had fallen down into the river. And a few years later, if you guys went back, you would have seen these trees starting to arch upwards like that. So again, that is those trees doing positive phototropism, so they're growing towards the light, but also negative gravitropism as they're now growing against the force of gravity. All right, well, I'm glad you guys found me in this bathtub. It was a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, I'm super bored and wanted to do a lesson that was a little bit different, and I thought this would be kind of fun. Don't tell my husband I stole his plants for this whole escapade. And there was a few bubbles left in the bath from my kid's bath this morning, so I'm lucky I didn't slip. We all miss you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this short little lesson of a review of plant transport. Take care, stay healthy, and we miss you guys so much. Bye!
Bye-bye.